In one of my most recent videos, I spoke about the absolute fraudulent nature of the global monetary system. And unfortunately, one of the very ugly byproducts that central bankers are creating out of this currency war, that is a race to the bottom in devaluation of all major fiat currencies, is a lot of racial propaganda and racial hatred. When you look at it, the main culprit behind all these problems are the central bankers. So it makes no sense whatsoever for Koreans to hate Japanese because of what the Bank of Japan has done, or for Chinese to hate Japanese because of what the Bank of Japan has done. This is the very, very dangerous propaganda game that's being played by bankers, and which unbelievably the masses of sheep are falling for. So they're so able to manipulate them based upon obviously past historical animosities, say between China and Japan, between Japan and Korea, between China and the United States. I just really want to say that we as a people, no matter what country you live in, have to be very, very wary and careful of falling for the central banker created propaganda. Now, obviously, since bankers have been able to impose upon us an absolutely fraudulent monetary system by which they plunder our wealth and which they steal from us on a daily basis, that they're clever enough to also know about the historical animosities that have existed, between countries, and they use this knowledge to basically raise the ire of people in different countries against each other. They're using this whole divide and conquer, the oldest trick in the book, right? You use basically, you create animosity between your enemies and to divide and conquer them. So instead of people being unified against central bankers, which they should be, they are actually being divided and conquered by this nonsense and this bogus propaganda. Unfortunately, if we don't wake up to this central bank politician-led propaganda campaign to stir up racial hatred and racial animosity in order to draw attention away from their massive currency devaluation campaign that they're waging against every major global fiat currency in the world, we're going to end up with another Vincent Chin. For those of you unfamiliar with Vincent Chin, his story basically goes as follows. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, the U.S. auto industry was suffering big time because of the increased capture of market share from the Japanese auto industry. So Detroit, which is the mecca of the U.S. auto industry, was laying off thousands of workers, and there was a lot of racial hatred that existed in Detroit towards the Japanese because they felt like the Japanese auto industry was taking away their jobs. So in 1982, a young Chinese-American man named Vincent Chin was beaten to death with a baseball bat by two racist Americans, Ronald Evans and Michael Nitz. Before Ronald Evans beat Vincent Chin to death, he stated, quote unquote, "It's because of you little motherfuckers that we're out of work." Racial hatred is always ugly. There's nothing pretty about it. That's what he said. And I repeat that quote only to make a point, only to serve as a dire warning that this is exactly the road we're headed down right now, because this is where bankers and politicians are leading us. So we all need to wake up collectively as a people and understand that central banks are creating our misery. Central banks are creating our unemployment. Central banks are creating the very destruction of our wealth by destroying our paper currencies. And we need to wake up to their divide and conquer schemes and not fall victim. Otherwise, we're just going to have massive race wars in the future where, all Chinese are going to hate Americans, Americans are going to hate Chinese, Americans are going to hate Russians, Americans are going to hate Arabics, because those are the regions that will be fine in the future because of their accumulation of massive accumulation of gold in their sovereign wealth funds and so forth. So there's going to be a lot more propaganda and race baiting that happens in the future. So I hope we can all see through the transparency of these diabolical schemes, and that we don't fall victim to them. And if you agree with me, please do pass this video along so we can help people understand exactly what is taking place as this global monetary crisis deepens, and to avoid the conflicts and instead to promote unity and love. Thank you.